Hello and welcome to another episode of our series Interior Design Talks. In this episode, we're going to be discussing a beautiful project that our interior designers here at Diotti.com have been working on in an apartment in Milan.
Thanks, Juliette, for the very elegant intro. It was perfectly rehearsed. Actually, hello everybody. Today we're talking about this project. It was developed by our interior designer, Elena, interior designer, and it's a peculiar project because she has been working in the last few months with the client. And the clients actually are Italians.
Okay.
They live in the US. But they have this old family house here nearby Milan, and they decided to refurbish it so that they can use it on their own when they come back to Italy.
Yes.
So it's not let's say their main house, which is in the US right now. It's not a vacation house. It's a kind of second house which they use when they come back to their mother country. Okay, so let's dive in. Okay, here we are. Here is a plan of the living room and kitchen area. Actually, in this project, we actually supplied bathrooms and the master bedroom, but we decided not to show them because they're not relevant for the aim of our discussion. I mean, with respect for the client, they're less interesting in terms of how the place is designed. So we focused on the living room. So let's dive in with this three-dimensional mouse. It's a relic from, I don't know, something like 15 years ago. I don't know if they make them anymore, but I think they are great and very comfortable because you can actually fly around in a certain project. So actually here we move backward to the entrance of the house. So this is the entrance, and here is a custom-made closet which has been built in this niche.
Yes, I can see it's really, actually, it seems to be set into the wall. And was that niche already there in the house?
The niche was already there, and actually, of course, there are times where we suggest the client to build a certain niche so that we can place a furniture item inside. In this case, it was already there, and it has simply custom made in both width and height. And actually, with closets, you can make them custom made. Let's go outside the wall. Okay, custom make them in all three dimensions, but we tend to avoid custom measures in depth because it becomes tricky when you insert all the additional accessories inside. While with width and height, it's very convenient and cheap in a way. It's quite cheap right now to make custom made, made to measure closets. So we enter the main room. Actually, here we had the first. Actually, this is a pillar, which is a founding pillar of the old building, and so of course it was something we had to deal with.
Yes, it's really a focal point of the room.
Yeah, actually, they chose the client and the interior designer. They chose the airport bookshelf system, which is typically asymmetrical, and they specifically chose to make this bookshelf wider than the column behind it.
I can see that it actually it's definitely wider than the column.
Yeah, actually, they could have built a bookshelf which would be identical in terms of width, but they specifically chose this approach to create movement. And from here, we see the sitting area with the sofa, and actually they used a sideboard. We will see it later on in pictures to rest the television onto it. They specifically chose something light in the sense they didn't want a traditional wall system. Sometimes wall systems built in the Italian style sometimes are more filled with items, and some could consider them bulky in some ways. Even, of course, they show original approaches to design, but sometimes they are more filled with pieces.
Yeah, but crowded.
Right, correct. You always help me with my vocabulary. Okay. And actually here they chose a sideboard, which is normally placed beside the table. And they decided to place the television onto it, which is a very convenient approach. Here we have the Exeter sofa with the chaise longue, and we can start seeing how it's the use of materials which give this project a special approach, because there are quite a few finishes. We will see them later on in the video, but they are all very coordinated and how would you say, they create a cozy space.
Exactly. They all, even though they're all different, they all come together in a way to create a space that's very, very homely, very cozy.
Oh yeah, I agree. Actually, you see, beside the television area, it was created this bar unit. Actually, it's a custom unit which was built with with kitchen furniture items and collections. So it integrates this specific fridge for wine, and it integrates this rack. The rack.
Yes, the glass rack.
Okay. And actually, here we see the same finishes that have been used in the kitchen, of course.
Oh, really? So the bar actually matches the kitchen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
actually, here we'll see later on the specific finish of the kitchen.
Yes.
Here we see the fronts, which are a specific laminate. Then we have the walnut columns with the boiserie here. And the same approach has been used here with the fronts and with this bronze finish and the walnut behind the glass rack. Okay, and now let's focus on the project itself. We must admit, let's look from above. We must admit, with all respect to our client, that the kitchen area is not big. And so we had to cope with a tiny measure here. And a first point of discussion was whether building a separate kitchen or having an open plan like this one. Actually, they could have built a wall here, starting from this column, and
definitely.
But what's your and then I'll tell you why here they kept it with an open plan. But what's your take between open plan and separate kitchen?
Well, I personally think that I prefer open plan kitchens just because even if you have a more limited space, a smaller apartment, you can still have that feeling of a larger open plan house, and also you still get that flow of light and communication with people in another room. So I think it allows you to create that feeling of a larger space while still having a little bit of separation.
Yeah, but you must only be a little more cautious when you do fried food.
Yes. And let us know in the comments whether you prefer the idea of a separate kitchen or an open plan kitchen.
Actually, in this case, it was, I think, as an interior designer myself, I think it was the correct thing to do, because the kitchen would have been, how do you say, habitabile, when you can actually place a table inside the kitchen. It's a kitchen that you can actually use daily.
Yes, you can actually. It is a kitchen that could have been put into use daily. You could have put a table into it.
But at the same time, it would have been a bit tiny, I would say cramped in a way.
Exactly, just a little bit too
And
cramped.
so it was a great approach to actually have this bar part with the stools. And actually this top here becomes both for consumption. It can be used both for consumption and actually for food preparation.
Yes.
And here we have the shore extending table, which is right beside it. And it can be used for everyday use in the family, or it can be used for guests when you decide to open it and extend it.
Yes.
Actually, so let's focus on the kitchen here. So it has been built high up to 240 centimeters, so reasonably high. Here we have the sink unit. We have a tiny dishwasher, which is 45 centimeters. Actually, 45 centimeters dishwashers are not ideal in terms of capacity because they're very tiny.
Yes.
But in this case, the client really loved the idea of having this technical, professional kitchen. Actually, the client provided this item, the kitchen itself.
Okay.
And we of course we designed the kitchen to revolve around this stainless steel unit. We'll see it in the pictures.
So it's very personalized. That's lovely.
Here we have the corner unit, then the fridge, and the column with both ovens, both the standard oven and the microwave. Here we have a drawers unit, okay, just like we have below the oven, and then we jump onto the other side. And I think in terms of how the room is designed and set up, I think it's becoming quite clear. You know, we are not displaying this project because it's unique in terms of dimensions. We're not displaying it because it's luxurious. We are displaying it because, as we'll see in the pictures, it has a very good result in terms of its appearance, the way the materials and the feel of the house has turned out to be.
So we've just shown you our 3D model of this apartment in Milan, but now let's take a look at the realistic photo renders that usually we do in the stage just before starting to actually design and bring the products into the apartment. So these here are realistic photo renders that we made just to get a perfect idea of what the apartment would be like. And then the client was kind enough to allow us to go into their apartment and take photos of the beautiful finished product, and we'll take a look at those now.
Okay, so these are the two renders that we developed, and we are now into the actual photos.
Yes.
So here we see the bookshelf. How do you call this item here for the
a ceiling fan.
A ceiling fan. Okay. So sorry again, my vocabulary will be improving with you.
Because it gets very hot in Milan.
Okay, so here we see the airport bookshelf at the entrance, and here we see the back of the sitting area with the sideboard we were describing you, and the coffee tables. Actually, we will be reviewing the armchairs. The Sean armchairs. The materials are beautiful. We'll review them later on. The bar area. Okay, here another view of the bookshelves. Okay, here a lower view of the sofa. Here is a detail of the kitchen. So we see now that the sink is different from what had been designed.
Yes.
Because it was designed as being dark and put from the top.
Yes.
Now it's a stainless steel, because you know sometimes you develop a project and then there are minor details which are changed between the project and what actually goes into production. Here we see the Noir Désir ceramic top, which is beautiful. It was used both for the top and the backsplash.
Yes.
Okay. Here you see the kitchen, the working area. Actually, it's not something we supplied, but you can see from this picture that the flooring is much better than what we displayed in the render. Of course, reality is often better than what we can display in a photorealistic render. And we see the detail of the table, and we discuss more about the core of the chair when we go to the armchairs. The floor, I really like the flooring. Here we see a detail of the leather chair and the ceramic which has been used for the table.
It's a very particular top.
Here is something I wanted to discuss and share, because you know, here is a beautiful ceramic Noir Désir, and here is this bronze finish for the table.
Yes.
And actually what is peculiar is that this model of table actually offers the type of ceramics that was used for the kitchen.
Okay.
So an approach could have been using the same ceramic, while here they chose not to. And I think you know, if you can't match item because collections are limited, it's a pity. At the same time, when you envision a project like this and you actually decide to use a different material to change the perception depending on the area in the room, I like it personally. So I actually love this project because it uses all my favorite colors. I don't know. I'm in love with this project because I love warm colors. What about your personal taste?
I agree. I think especially because the family live far away. They come back to Italy. They would like to feel
in a warm environment.
Yes, exactly, at home.
Okay.
And the fact that this home, although it's not their permanent home, it's so welcoming, so warm, and I think the colors really add to that, the natural warm colors.
Okay, so here we see the detail of this bronze finish. Here we see a detail of the stools. These stools, I can tell you, are very comfortable. Not only because they have a high backrest, which is not very common on bar stools.
No.
Normally they have lower backrest, but also because the seat and the back are quite padded, and so they are among the most comfortable stools we know. Here we see details of the bookshelves with the beautiful finish, which is brushed bronze.
Yes.
We'll see it later when we review the mood board. Here's a beautiful view of the kitchen. And actually we see again the 45 centimeters dishwasher. To give you an idea, this is an 80 centimeters sink base. You see 40, 40, 45. Then we have the proper kitchen, which is 90 with the built-in hood. And then we are already at the corner. Okay, so different views. I really love this.
It's
this finish.
beautiful. It's really beautiful.
Here we see the closet that we were looking at the entrance when I was telling you about the custom-made measures. Here you see here's a corridor that leads to a study room, let's say a guest room with its own bathroom. Okay, and of course this in the 3D project was not as beautiful as it is in reality. Actually,
no.
Here is a detail of the grip that is used to open the door. Actually, this is lacquered. Both the surface, the main surface, is lacquered on MDF, and this is lacquered aluminium. But of course, the color is the same, so it gives a tone-on-tone effect. Here again is the table. Okay, this I love this piece. Actually,
it's so beautiful.
Elena told me, I told you before, they started from this piece, which they loved. Actually, here, this is a walnut. This is walnut, just like the accessories. And it has these solid wood rounded bars, which are attached to the surface. Okay. But the main surface here is a bronzed mirror. So it's actually a mirror. So here you see the coffee table, which is reflected inside it. But it actually darkens. It makes the image darker.
It does. Right? It does. Yeah.
But with a bronze tone. You know, when you make the dark mirrors, they normally are manufactured like fumé, which are lean towards a dark gray, shade. This is bronze, which of course fits with the rest of the room. Here is a different perspective. And here is the detail of the rounded bars which are attached. So this sideboard, for example, it has the top or the structure is wood, but it's actually an MDF panel with veneer attached on top, while all these details, of course, they are solid wood, and this is why they can be rounded like this, like you see here. Here is the bar solution. Actually, this doesn't just like this cabinet is of course it can be customized, but is a standard item which you can find in the catalog. This is a custom solution because you start from a kitchen collection. Here you have 60 centimeters base, 90 centimeters. The fridge, the wine fridge.
Yes.
Does it have a specific name? Wine. How do you call it? Wine fridge. Canteen. The canteen.
Yes, the canteen.
Oh, sorry sorry for my English. It will improve. And there is this is a custom-made base. I guess it's 20-25 here, and it was simply put there to complete the dimension and actually perfectly fill this niche.
Yes.
Just like we were commenting the closet niche at the entrance, this here is the same situation.
Yes, this niche has really been used to its full potential, and we're very creative in putting a bar.
Yeah, actually, you need to organize parties with such a beautiful.
Yes.
What is the most drunk? What do you use what do you drink in South Africa? What is the most amarula? I guess amarula.
Amarula, yes.
Amarula is from South
Africa. Very, very good, but Yes, very strong things in South Africa.
Okay. Have you drinks?
Lovely wines also from Cape Town.
Oh, okay. Lovely wines as well.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So, sorry for the parenthesis, but Juliette is from South Africa, and when we review a bar unit, it's good to discuss what they drink in South Africa. Okay, so we move on. Actually, here, this light is we didn't supply it. It's not from our catalog, and I think it's very peculiar because you see there are here multiple pendants, and they are all connected to this base unit here.
Yes.
And so it's peculiar. Here is the Sean armchair with its coffee table. I find this beautiful, not only a beautiful armchair, but it's also quite comfortable. And we'll review the materials later on. Here is the Tuscania leather, which is a full grain leather. Really amazing. We'll see it in a moment. And actually, you see two colors, the main surface and the stitching. And the stitching actually matches the chairs of the dining room, of the dining table. This is why I was saying they call multiple materials, but which we fit very well together.
Exactly.
Here is another detail of the bar unit with the ceramics and the laminate, the bronze laminate, which was used for the kitchen. Here you see the detail of the canteen. Now we know the word. Okay, other details of the glass racks. Okay, again the sofa, and here is another detail of here we see the dark, the gray oak finish for the structure, and the two Toscania colors which are matched on the underline padded structure and on the cushion which is resting onto it. Here is an upper view, and I think we are getting near the end of our. We are here. For example, is a detail from the bedroom. Here's a completely upholstered closet, which is quite peculiar.
Oh wow!
Here you see it's upholstered in semi-leather, faux leather, faux leather, and it's all stitched. Wow. It's beautiful indeed. And but we, as we said, the bedrooms. Here we see a detail of the inside of the closet. And here we see the detail of the closet. Okay, so we have done the review of all the pictures of this beautiful project. Let's dive in the mood board.
Yes.
Okay, let's review the materials used for this project. And what we are about to do is similar to what we do with clients when we discuss a project, in the sense that we start from a layout, which is confirmed and agreed by the client. And then we start working with materials, samples in detail. And for example, here is the fender laminate, which is a very, it's a great finish, I think, because when it's installed on the kitchen, you don't perceive it to be a laminate. It appears as being ceramics. It's very practical and scratch resistant. It's reasonably cheap, so you don't end up spending too much on the doors.
But you can still have that modern, stylish finish.
It's and also I really like it because it has a texture, and this texture is not linear, vertical or horizontal, but it's kind of angled in relation to the how you build the kitchen. And here we take the Noir Désir ceramic.
I love this.
You'll probably see my fingerprints on the sample. This is a thinner sample, but it gives you the effect of the surface.
Yes.
Actually, this finish is available also in the matte version, but I really like the shiny one much more. It's actually more realistic. It appears as being marble, while the matte version is less realistic in this regard. Okay. And with these two finishes, we have walnut.
Yes.
And this basically is the mood board of the kitchen and the bar area. What happens quite normally is that in rooms which are made up of multiple items and multiple collections, sometimes it's difficult to have the same exact walnut to be in the room. So you end up using different collections. And for example, this is the walnut shade which is used for the sideboard.
Yes, a slightly warmer shade.
Yeah, warmer. But the point is that when there is an overall coordination, and when items are not strictly attached together, but they are a few meters away, yes, here we perceive how different they are. But actually, if I showed it to you like from a distance, from 2 meters away, you wouldn't perceive it.
You wouldn't really feel
and
the difference.
actually, it's the same wood with the same overall veneer, and the different shade is something that you do not really perceive. And even when you perceive it, it's actually pleasant, I would say.
Yes.
Here, our colleague Stefano provided us with a different sample. Actually, this is solid wood. Here it's not finished, so it has not been lacquered with the transparent lacquer, but it shows the look, for example, on the coffee tables beside the Sean armchairs.
Exactly, yes.
Those coffee tables have a solid wood top, and just like in trees, you have the circles. How do you call them?
The circles.
The circles, okay.
Yes.
You have the circles. Actually, you see them on solid wood, and so this is another example. And here you see a slightly different shade again, but the overall look is actually pleasant.
Yes.
So now we focus on one shade of walnut only, and we place in the picture the bronze finish
of the
tabletop. Exactly. It's actually called oxide.
Yes.
And you see, this was a specific choice, and instead of going for the table with the same exact finish, this is a matte finish. In this case, I like it very much.
It's beautiful.
And it's very, very practical, because you don't see the fingerprints again.
Exactly,
that you actually see.
Yes.
That you see here. And it fits well with the Fender laminate. Okay. Here we take, it's very tiny, I hope that you see it, the sample of the bookshelf, the airport bookshelf in the entrance, the brushed bronze finish.
With that brushed effect.
You see, this is, let's see if I can, it's actually has this brushed effect, fits well with the Fender. It's actually quite different if you see it from here.
Yes.
But when you look at the overall picture and you see it like this, it creates a beautiful setting.
Yeah, it all goes very well together.
What do you think about it?
I agree. I think that it's very nice to not have identical materials, because it's very interesting that the woods are different shades, and that you've got the tabletop is different from the ceramic in the kitchen. But at the same time, they all come together very beautifully.
Yeah, I mean, as an interior designer, I normally start trying to use less materials and less finishes. But sometimes, if you desire a certain item, you simply need to consider adding a material, and then it's the interior designer role to actually coordinate it all. So I must add that black is normally a color that fits with pretty much anything.
Yes.
Anything. And actually many details in this project are actually black, and as you see, it fits well with all the rest.
Yes.
And we must also remember that the floor of this client, of this particular project, is a light oak shade, I think shaded with gray.
Yes.
And it gives light to what are normally considered as being darker finishes.
Yes, it adds a really nice contrast between the light and the dark.
We enter the upholstered realm with the diamond fabric. Here we see this is the color that has been used for the sofa. It's actually a boucle with shades of gray and beige, but also with black and golden
and some gold. That's so
threads.
beautiful.
Yeah, and this is the burgundy red, which was used for the scatter cushions.
Okay.
Again with beige and black threads, and this is high-end boucle. It's very resistant in terms of use. You just need to be slightly careful with I don't know, drinking wine. The wine that you prepare on the bar, you need to be, because it's I mean, it can get stained, and then you would need to bring it to the dry cleaning. Of course, the cover is detachable, so if it gets stained, you can save it, but you simply have to work to detach the cover. So this is a beautiful match, and we move on with the color of the armchairs, okay, which we were telling you about the Tuscania leather, which is a natural leather, which is actually made not with a chemical process, but a plant-based dyeing process. So the colors are very natural, and actually the smell is very
it's really that leather smell.
You don't perceive it as being industrial.
No.
It's beautiful. Now when we finish the video, don't hide in the closet. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, these are the colors that were used for the armchairs, the Sean armchairs. This is a dark brown with a slight shade of burgundy, and this is the color of the frame, which is this dark gray oak, and this is the color for the stitching. And the same color was used for the chairs that were matching this table. And what we have more is probably this is something. It's probably less emotional because there are tiny samples, but it's something that I wanted to point out, because you see this color here was actually used for the chairs, for the dining chairs, and when you see it here, it appears to be quite dark. And this is quite normal, because when you look at the sample, at the very tiny samples, it always appears to be darker than reality. And this is the color used for the stools. But if you go back to the pictures you will of the height of the project, you will see that these appear to be lighter and these appear to be lighter. And actually, when you look in the picture, let's do this example here. When you look at it here, actually these appear to be lighter. But when you place them in the project, they are a few meters away, they appear to be identical. Actually, before delving into the details of the production order, I could not realize it. Two different leathers were used, but it actually works very well.
It works very well together.
So actually, we reviewed the multiple materials that we have been using for this project, and actually we filled the table with multiple samples. And actually, there are quite a few. I haven't counted them all, but I think there might be 10, 12 materials used in the same room. But when you look, and if you look at the number, they appear to be a bit too many. If you look at the pictures, you perceive a very coherent look of the room. And so what's your take about this topic?
Well, I often like to think, especially, I do like minimalist design and style a lot more. And I think that usually less is more. And if you have many materials and textures that are very different, it can often make a room feel too busy, too crowded, too harsh for the eyes. But I think especially in this case of this apartment, all of these different textures and colors go so well together that even though they are all different, they're not too much. They're subtly different, and they manage to come together very well to still create this very calming, warm, welcoming space without it being too much and too much confusion. We hope that you've enjoyed this video in which we dived into the details and the processes that we went through in creating this stunning apartment in Milan. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give us a like and subscribe to catch more episodes of our interior design talks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for watching.
See you next time.